Hello and welcome back. In this video, I will be showing you how to model this in 3ds Max. So before we start, let's save this image let's save it locally. I'm going to save it on my desktop, and you can find this image at this link. I did not design this image or this concept. I just found it on Pinterest. So now let's switch back to 3ds Max. So right now I want to create a reference image, and there are multiple ways of doing that. My favorite way is by creating a plane, rotate that by 90 degrees, and if that's not rotating, make sure this angle snap is on, and then rotate it by 90 degrees, move it up and move it back. And now let's create some materials. So let's pick an empty spot and drag that materials and apply it to the object, and let's give it a diffuse color. So we could just drag and drop the image on this area right here. So we could do that. So if I open desktop or the location where I have saved the image, so let's say I have the image right here. All I have to do is just drag and drop, and you can see the image popping up. So if the proportion is not correct, just scale the plane. And now let's freeze it. We will right click on the image, object properties, and make sure it's freeze, and make sure the show frozen in gray is unchecked, and then press OK. And now you cannot select the image. So let's start by creating the main focus. I'm not sure what it is called, those wooden things. So I will start creating that first. So I'm going to switch to the front view, and if you press F, you will switch to the front view, but in orthographic view. So if you press F3, you can see the image, so you can see it in shaded mode. And if you press G, you can toggle the grid. So far I want to just hide that, and let's create a box. So I'm going to make sure the box is somewhat close to the height of that. So, and let's make sure that the width or the thickness is somewhat similar. And once you are happy with it, we will create an array. That's the game plan. So we'll create an array of this box, and then we will bend it, and then we will use the FFD modifier to make it look like that, a bit curvy. So notice here how this is bent. So if we apply this right now, if we create the array, so we go on the modifier, and let's assign it an array. So let's give it an array and make sure it's let's follow the design here. So you have 1 2 3 4 5 6 pieces, so we make sure that there is 6, and let's give it a little bit of an offset, so maybe 1.01, maybe 2, I don't know. And then let's apply the bend modifier. So let's switch between the axes and let's rotate that to 360 degrees. So we might notice that the bend does not look right. Something is off with it. So I think the best way to do this is maybe we apply a reset X form. So we'll reset it and switch back to the modifier. I will move that a little bit back and then collapse too. So it takes anything from this position and below and collapse it. So I'm going to convert this to an editable poly. So let's select this right here. Maybe we'll need that removed, and now you can switch it to an editable poly, and let's give it an array again. So it's 6 and and 1.02, and let's apply the bend modifier, see if it's going to fix that issue. and 60 degrees. So maybe we'll need to go here and maybe rotate the object. So let's see the full view, and let's see what happens if we rotate it as an element. So the element, let's just select the entire object, and maybe, and now you can see the rotation is a lot more correct, but it's not rotating in the right angle. Anyway, so this looks good, but as we can see, it's not the wood, I think it's called log, it's not bending correctly, and that's due to little amount of resolution. So let's give that an edge loop. So maybe using the Swift loop is not the best option, so let's select all those edges as a ring, and let's assign, let's do a connect. So I will click on the settings for the connect. If you want, you can give it two of the, which makes it a bit more roundish. Let's accept those changes. And before we proceed any further, this is the best time to make your changes before going any further, because I want to unwrap one piece and then apply the changes. So let's take a good look at the image. So maybe we can see a little bit of roundiness here, so maybe we can bevel it. So maybe we select the polygon Let's see if we can, because this does not look right. So let's rotate that 90 degrees and maybe move it to the, no, it's not working. Let's see what happens if we do that. Switch back to the bend array. Yeah, you can work with the directions, so let's make that sure it's 90 degrees. So let's compare it. So let's go ahead and just, the thickness doesn't seem right, so let's go into the polygons. Let's hide the rest and maybe just make sure that it's a little bit thin. Maybe it's a little bit wider, so let's select all and make it maybe a bit wider. Let's see how it looks like with the final. So this might look a little bit better, and maybe the top edges is a bit just give it a little bit more of aesthetics. And let's make sure that we have few edge loops here, because later on I will be applying an FFD modifier. For now you could make that, so like you could, if we add an FFD right now, you could see the aftermath. So let's select the point system and maybe move, see how it looks. Let's make sure that it is being compared to the image. Maybe take that a little bit down and move it out. Maybe add another FFD if I'm not happy with the results. I'll just delete that. Let's go into this one, go into the control point and move it back. Move it back a little bit and move the bottom a little bit in. Let's select the whole thing, move it a little bit back just to make it a little bit wider. I think this looks good. And now let's add another edit poly so we can make some more adjustments. So I want to give the edges a little bit more of a bevel, so I will hide the end results and I'm going into the face polygons or face. I'm gonna select both sides and maybe we can chamfer it or bevel it. Let's see what results it would give us. Maybe just like that, just a little bit. So let's see how it looks like with the end results turned on. So this looks good. let's do one for the bottom. So we select the bottom ones. So let's turn on wireframe by pressing F4. Okay. So I select only one because I'm having an issue with finding the faces. So this is good. Let's take a look at the end result. So I think the tools have been hidden. So let's hide the end results and let's just select those faces and accept the changes. And now let's apply the final results. I think it looks good. And now let's unwrap it. So let's hide the end results. Let's add an edit, unwrap UVW. Scroll all the way down, make sure the projection selected as a box, and let's do a peel, a quick peel. So far this is what we have. We will need to do some stitching. Can do right click and stitch selected. You can see it's being automatically moved. And now let's select the whole thing and relax it. If you can do another unpeel just to make it so, just to reset the sizes and all, so we can turn on the checker just to make sure that all the sizes of the boxes are good. So it looks good for now. I will move this aside. Maybe rotate it a little bit. And if you want, you can relax it just a little bit. See what results you would get. If you get something that you might not like, so I'm not liking this, I will just undo it. You can do like a custom relax. So I'm happy with this. Right click again, as before, we do collapse 2. Undo that. Let's make sure. Okay. Let's select this and collapse 2. So far we have this. Let's change the materials because this looks unpleasant. So let's apply any materials to it, and let's change the color to black. And now let's take a look at the metal part. So this is easy. All we need is just a cylinder. And the second one would be, so we would make one and copy and paste. So maybe we can turn this into a ring. Okay. So this is good. So let's convert that to an editable poly. Let's make sure this is centered. So we activate the transform tool and we just center this out. And the reason for that, so when we center this, it would matches with the object. So as you can see, the only reason this is not centered well because it is centered as the one wooden log without the modifiers. So if we add another edit poly on top of it, and then we go under the hierarchy and change the pivot to center, and now the position of the box is more the position of the object is more correct. So if we center that, it will match the sphere. So let's move this to the top. Let's make sure that we look at the reference image, and let's change the width, and so I'm going to top so I can select more freely. So I will select those faces. Let's delete those and delete those. I'm going to use the border to select these two, and borders can only be selected if we have open areas. Let's just make that smaller, and so this is not moving, and the reason is because the area of the selection is not median, so it's not on the median area, which it will allow for the scale. And to adjust that, all you have to do is just go under the pivot to center and make sure that is centered, so that way we can make those kind of modifications. So let's make sure that this is a bit wider, and let's go into F4, select these two edge loops, and let's apply a chamfer, a little bit of chamfer to it. Just a little bit, that's good. And maybe make that a little bit, so it's, yeah, so this is good. So let's make another duplicate of it and move it down. Let's make it wider. And let's change the color. So go into materials by pressing M and apply the same material as the other ones. And let's change the object color to black. So let's take a look at, and before we go any further, let's just unwrap it quickly. So unwrap, so I already have a shortcut here, so I'll just press that. I'll go under the cylinder, make sure it fits, and if that did not work, just select the polygon, select all, then go back into the cylinder projection and make sure it fits and centered, and then quick peel. Right now we see those edges are not being welded, so let's just fix those quickly. Right click and stitch selected. Let's select all faces and let's just relax them. If you want, you can do a quick peel just quickly, just to make sure it's uniform. Let's select it, rotate it, make it a little bit more horizontal so the angle snap is on. I'm going to turn that off because it's not needed at this time, and just eyeball it. So really, like, if in the workspace you're expected to do this to make sure that this is straight line. I'm just being lazy with the rotation, so and you do the same thing with the horizontal one, and make sure that you are seeing the checkboxes, make sure everything is in order. So far it looks good. I'm going to close that and apply all, and I'm going to delete the bottom one and just take that and make a duplicate of it. and then make it a little bit wider. Maybe this, I'll make this a bit thinner. Okay, that's good. And now let's take a look at the rope. The rope is simple. All we have to do is just we can I'm going with the spline tool, so I will create a circle, make it wider, and move it up, and let's go into the and let's convert that into a spline. That way we can divide it a little bit more because the number of points is a little bit limited. So let's go into segments and let's select all, and maybe let's see if we can divide it. We can see divide here, so we have created more anchor points, so we can select every other one. So let's switch to vertex, select every other one, so how many do we have? So we have 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let's move it down. Let's select all of them and scale them in. Maybe move it down a little bit, and maybe we can bring those in just a little bit, and those one maybe we can bring them out. And so let's turn on the rendering so we can see the circle shape that being created. So we can do this enable in viewport, because we will convert this into an editable poly, so we can make this a little bit bigger, thicker, I mean. So let's see if it follows the design. Yeah, this looks good. If you want, you could make it look more generic, maybe just make a little bit movement, maybe use the bezel controller to make it wider. I don't know, maybe make maybe one higher. So this is good. What we do now is right click on it and convert into an editable poly. Before you proceed any further, make sure that you're okay with the resolution, because this is kind of permanent. So I'm going to maybe make this 8. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Convert into an editable poly. If you don't like how the edges it is, you just select all and smooth shade. So you could do that through this by auto smooth, and this is good. Let's change the materials. Let's press M, apply the same materials as the rest, and let's change the color here to black. So in shader mode, in wireframe mode, you can see it as black. When it is deselected, this looks a lot more professional. So let's unwrap it. So let's unwrap UBW map. Let's take a look at the let's select all polygons, and maybe we want, I don't know, a cylinder fits and center, and let's do quick peel. So right now, because these are the only seams that we have, so let's select edges. Maybe we want to select, so let's hide anything that's not selected. So hide unselected, so we can have a closer look. Maybe we want to select this one, this edge, and mark it as a seam. And now let's scroll down, let's select all faces and quick peel. This should have helped it a little bit. So now we do need to do some stitching. So I'm going to into edges and start select stitch selected. And now select all and quick peel again, just to make it a little bit uniform. So I do see that we have, so let's collapse all. So I do see a lot of edges here, and I think there's a way to select every other. So I think with the ring, I think there's a way to select every other one. Yeah, under selection I'm not seeing every other one. So I will select every other one. And let's do a ring. Oh, sorry. Oh, I can select the loop. Just control and backspace to delete it. Okay. This is good. Make sure you go back and check the unwrap. So because we can see an issue here, these edges has not been, and this could be due to changing the geometry. So let's select all polygons. Let's select cylinder, fit and center, and then open UV editor and do a quick peel. So let's select the edges and turn that into a seam. Then we select all polygons, again cylinder, fit, center, and then peel. And now we start to stitch those ones. Select all, do a quick peel again. It's perfect. So right click and collapse all. And right click and unhide all to see the whole thing. So it is getting there. Now all we have to do is create the cylinder here, and to do that is we go under primitive object, I think it's a tube. No, I think it's a torso. Oh, yep. Yeah, it is a torso. And let's make the resolution a little bit lower, so maybe make that into 12 and the sides 8, maybe 6. Rotate that 90 degrees, so we can go here and change it to 90 degrees. So this looks correct. Let's convert that to an editable poly. And let's select this to make the holder. So and let's extrude. So let's hide unselected, and let's do that from the local norm. Let's make that a lot smaller. This looks good. Let's do unhide all. And maybe we can bevel this to make it look a bit smoother, so, or chamfer it. And now let's apply the materials to it. Press M for materials and apply it. So let's unwrap it. Let's hide unselected. And what we want to do is apply unwrap UVW map, and we want to change the seam from here all the way to the back so it is hidden. So for now, let's just do a quick peel. So let's select all the faces, select the cylinder, fit and center. Let's make sure this is oriented correctly. You could do a manual one if you wish, and then peel. And now let's select this one right here and convert it into a seam. And now let's select all the faces and then quick peel. Let's use a proper projection. Yeah, this looks a lot more correct. And let's make sure that there's a seam here as well, so those can be disconnected from the object. So let's select the polygon, select all, and unwrap. And let's stitch that quickly. Let's select that. Let's go into polygons, select those faces and relax it. Do the same thing for this. This looks good. And let's do collapse all. Unhide all. Let's make a duplicate of this. And let's mirror it without copying. So let's make sure it's mirrored correctly and move it in. if the bottom, if this object were to stay static, not being moved, it is okay not to have a bottom piece. But worst case scenario, all you need to do is just add a plane, move it to the bottom, convert to an editable poly, select the border, and then go into Rapid Tools and just make it circular. And now you can make this a little bit wider, and maybe if you want you can go into polygons and flip it. The safest option is to give it a shell, so that way if this were to be, I don't know, being seen from all angles, at least you wouldn't have a face that might seen as it would be like a back call. You don't want that, so just give it a shell, quick shell. That way it give it some thickness. Let's go into materials, assign a good material to it, and yeah, select all, make sure the color is black, and that is it. Now you can go ahead, apply textures. You can do a hand painted textures. As for the bolts, this is a normal map. So for example, so let's go here and let's select the Unwrap UV. So we can select the whole thing, and we can make it so like you can have it like that. So for this you can add the bolts in as a normal map. So to see that quickly, since we have the maps sorted out, so you can do collapse all, and you can export this object into so for example, I'm going to export it out to Blender, so I'm going to make this, I don't know, as a container. So you can take it into Substance Painter if you want, or any other 3D program, and paint those bolts in. So I can show you like a quick demo using a Blender. So you can import this in, so you have this in, you can select it, and if you open the you go into texture painting, and here you go into shader, so what you can do is you can add a pump node, and then you can add an image textures, and then you create an image, let's create another one, and let's change the color to be 0.5. Make sure it's at 32-bit, and this is a non-color. And now you can start painting those bolts in. So let's hide everything else. So you can add a bolt all around. So you can change the profile of the brush if you want. So you can go in under the fall off and make this a bit sharper, and you can add a bolt. Without having to actually model the whole thing. And yeah, like there are other ways of doing it. This is one way. This is a free program that you can add textures to it. So this is a quick overview in Blender, but overall you can do it in Photoshop, you can do it in Krita. So all you need to do is just open the Unwrap UV, go in, open UV editor, and you just render one. So you render the maps. If you want, you can go into a higher resolution, and you take that into Blender, make sure which one is which, and then paint your information, and you can convert that into a normal map. And that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this quick overview, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye.